Here's a bunch of tips and tricks for OBS Studio. Let's begin. Pressing Ctrl E on a source or right-clicking that source, going to transform and edit transform will give us a bunch of options, starting with precision rotation. Right there. A lot of people don't know that you can rotate sources, and other people know that you can rotate source by clicking on this handle and doing this, but this is not precise at all. And if you ever use the Move plugin to rotate that source, you'll realize that this is not the same anchor point. And that brings us to the second part of the edit transform, the positional alignment, or what I like to call the anchor point. If I apply rotation here by just scrolling on my mouse, you'll see that top left is the anchor point. Is the point that will determine the rest of the rotation. But usually we don't want it to be top left. We kind of want it to rotate from the middle because it's more intuitive. So here we can just set it to center. It'll move our object a little bit. Well, that's fine because we can press Ctrl D or right click, transform, center to screen. And now when pressing Ctrl E and rotating, this type of rotation makes way more sense, right? It's rotating from the middle. The anchor point is in the center of the image. That's what I used when I was creating, well, this animation that you see right now. It's supposed to be some sort of PNG tuber. The eyes are kind of wonky right now, but this entire thing was made completely in OBS Studio with the Move plugin. I have a video on that. That's also what I used to create a full walking cycle animation, also just in OBS Studio. Let's say you want to do something creative in OBS and it requires you to bring sources from outside the frame into the frame, but you want to be able to place them outside of frame, but somewhere precise. For example, let's say that I have something that should come from top left here. Well, I can't see top left. So how can I properly place things outside of frame? Well, it would be great if we were able to just zoom out a little bit or zoom in. And you can do this by right-clicking, going to preview scaling, clicking on canvas. There you go. And now by holding spacebar, I can not only zoom out, place my stuff wherever I want outside of frame, but I can also move this around, giving me so much flexibility. That was super useful when I was creating my fake 3D scene in order to put my overlays in some sort of fake 3D space. Once you have everything all set, go back, preview scaling, and just set it to scale to window. That is, of course, one single scenario. Let's say that I was trying to place something and I really needed it to be pixel perfect. That means that I can go in and zoom in a lot to make sure that my overlay is pixel perfect. You can display a scene in its own window. All you have to do is right click on the scene, go to either windowed projector scene or full screen projector scene. Let's do window, and there you have it. Now, this could be useful if there's a specific scene that you would like to take a look at all times on your second monitor. So while the stream is going on, you'll see that even if I switch scenes like this, so now I'm on my starting soon screen, but I'll still have access to that scene over there. An example can be the fact that I have a green screen scene, try saying that 10 times, that has all of my memes that can be triggered separately. And I can't always keep an eye on what's going on, so having this be a part of my second screen could help me. Another use case I find for this is if you have a visible monitor somewhere on screen. Let's create a quick test. You could right click and then full screen projector to that other screen, which could be cool if you want to use a video projector. Advanced Scene Switcher is a powerful plugin that helps you automate certain tasks in OBS Studio. It uses the if this then that model, making it super easy to enhance your workflow. One example that I made a video about was a podcast that basically edits itself while recording. So at any point you could enable a if I'm speaking show my camera, if my guest is speaking, show their camera macro. Pair that with the Move transition to have some smooth transition in between those, and you have a pretty cool looking podcast that you literally don't have to edit. The second application, which I also made a video about, shows really how powerful it can be because it has image detection technology or whatever. Basically, I set it so that every time it recognizes the lobby of my video game, it would switch my scene back to my just chatting scene. And every time I would be in game, it would automatically switch to my game scene. Now, it's a little finicky, but I managed to get some pretty good results. Now let's talk about scripts. Scripts live under the Tool tab, go to Scripts, and you can add some scripts that can do various things in OBS. One of my favorites is the Zoom to Mouse script, which you probably saw in my previous tutorials that I kind of abuse it. And it gives me options to press a keybind, have it zoom to my mouse, and then follow it around or stop following or zoom out. Super practical when I don't have to edit that manually. I believe Nerdadai has a script that basically allows you to install their overlays with one click. There you go. On their YouTube channel, you can see an example and you'll see that from the script tab, they're adding stuff to their overlay, which is pretty cool. Another script that I talked about recently, which should be showing here is the beep recording. And this script basically plays a beep noise when you're recording and when you stop recording. Very practical for people like me who record videos all the time in OBS Studio. Now, I tried my best making a tips and tricks video for OBS Studio without telling you just download a bunch of plugins. But we gotta talk about a couple of key plugins. The OBS Plugin Manager helps you keep track on which plugins you have installed and helps you add and remove them. There's also the OBS Plugin Updater that helps you, well, update your plugins. New versions come out all the time and this helps you keep track of that. Now let's talk about OBS scene transitions. Most of you already know about Stinger transition. Custom graphics will cover the screen for a brief moment while the scene switches and then go away. But did you know that you don't actually have to use custom graphics directly, at least not visible ones? You could use something called track matte transition. Now you do have to create custom graphics for it, except those custom graphics will only be a map of what should be visible and what should be hidden. Usually black and white, let's say white reveal, black hides, or vice versa, and you end up with transitions like this. This is part of a free pack that I recently dropped, by the way. Okay, you can use track matte transitions, great, but you can also use a scene as a transition, made by Andy Leapy, which is the same guy who made that plugin Updater. And as the name suggests, it allows you to use the scene as a transition. I made a whole video creating a transition from scratch within OBS Studio, and then using that scene with that transition as a Stinger transition. But wait, there's more. You can use a browser source as a transition, and funny enough, Andy Leapy has a video on it. And the plugin was created by my boy, Exeldro, all right? Now let's say that you want specific transitions for specific scenes. Right now, if I click on start, I'm gonna have my puzzle transition. And if I go back on game, same thing, right? But let's say that I want start to have a different one. You can right click and click on transition override and set this to a fade, for example. I'm gonna set it to 3000 milliseconds, so it's really slow. Boom. So now when I go to game, I have my puzzle, but when I go back to start, it's a slow fade. Okay? Now that's quick and dirty. Now let's say that you want something really complex. You have a bunch of scenes with a bunch of different transitions and you want the relationships to be all on a table. That's where Exeldro strikes again with transition table. Here you can set and keep track of all of your transitions. Now let's talk about audio. No matter what microphone you're using, if you're not using anything external, I'm gonna click on mic auxiliary filters. The basic filters that you need are basically within OBS Studio. A noise gate, so it doesn't pick up all the sounds that are far away from your mic, like birds chirping or your chair moving. It practically mutes your mic under a certain threshold because it detects that you're not talking anymore. Then you have noise suppression. This one is mostly for when you are talking. If there's loud noise, loud background noise, it will try its best to basically suppress this. You usually have two options in OBS. And then the compressor helps kind of normalize the sound. Certain microphones are very sensitive if you start speaking like outside of the range. This will help you give like a little bit of more constant volume. Now those three filters are basically basic management for any microphone. But now if you really want to tweak and shape the sound, you can use VST filters. A free and pretty popular one is the Voxengo Marvel GEQ. And as you can see, it's basically an equalizer. Lets you play with the bass, the low, the mids, and the highs, or the treble. If your voice or your microphone tend to exaggerate a certain frequency, what the fuck? If your voice or your mic tend to exaggerate a certain frequency or just lack in another one, you can basically tweak it to make it sound more balanced or more pronounced. Another one I like to use is TDR Nova. This is both a compressor and an equalizer, I believe. I haven't used it in a while. And it's pretty nice. It's dynamic, so it will actually show you which frequencies are high or low and things like that. But to be fair, if you have a fancy microphone, it probably came with its own software where you can set up your own effects and all that good stuff. Oh, look at that. I have TDR Nova on Elgato. Elgato also have noise removal and voice focus and a bunch of other stuff. But if you want to avoid using external software, you can just set that up in OBS Studio. That way, if you switch mics, your settings will still be there. And finally, some advice. When you're streaming, you want to keep it as simple as possible. Remember that the more you complicate your whole setup with external software, with more filters, with more plugins and blah, 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 the more chances of things going wrong and something breaking. What's the saying? The more cogs in the machine, the more likely you are to have technical difficulties or something like that. And I would actually give the opposite advice for people just recording with OBS Studio. Not just needlessly making a complex setup, but actually setting your OBS OBS in a way that you have to do little to no editing is gonna save you so much time. For people like me who make videos where I'm sitting and talking or sitting and showing you something, having multiple scenes, being able to zoom in when I'm recording, being able to pause the recording is gonna help me tremendously when it's finally time to actually edit. And stop missing out. Subscribe now, turn on notifications, and check me out on Twitch.